It's time for the final installment of the seventh book in the Animorphs series, The Stranger, tonight. When I began with this book, I was telling you that this one always strikes me as being a bit of a turning point, or where things get extra really weird, and feels a bit like the first season finale. I think maybe more like the mid-season finale. And earlier this evening, I was trying to explain the concept of the Megamorphs interjections into the Animorphs book series to Matt, and saying how it's kind of like we're going to stop with the mid-season finale, and you're going to have to wait a few months for the continuation, or for the regular story to continue. But in the meantime, you're also going to get like a holiday special that gets broadcast once, and it's like, an hour-long big budget production, but it's not necessarily very related, and it's unclear whether it benefits from the big budget production. Makes no sense. Anyway, that's just the first minute spiel in case anybody else is coming to join us. So to recap, because the seventh book is a doozy, the Animorphs identified another entrance to the Yerk pool in the cavern beneath their city, and infiltrated the Yerk pool, but then an Elemist, or the Elemist, a godlike being of some description, froze time to make them an offer, which was basically that the Animorphs, their immediate family members, and some other humans could be relocated to a nature preserve planet for humans and some other Earth species, or they could continue their war against the Yerks, but the Elamists expressed certainty that they would lose. The Animorphs weren't quite convinced that the Elamist was so certain of those odds and weren't ready to give up. They declined the offer. So the Elamist has been giving them a glimpse of the future post-war, once the Yerks have won and scorched planet Earth. So they are, I guess, exploring this future and easily just pretending to be human controllers, because why would the Yerks believe that there were any humans who weren't controllers wandering around? But when confronted by a controller who wants to know what they're doing, Tobias has claimed that Axe is actually Visser 3. So that's where we left off. Chapter 20. Visser 3, the woman repeated skeptically. It took me a few seconds to track. What was Tobias talking about? Why was he saying Axe was Visser 3? Fortunately, Axe caught on more quickly. He immediately began to demorph and return to Andalite form. And as soon as the Andalite stalk eyes appeared, the woman began to tremble. But you said Visser 3. Only Visser 1 has an Andalite host body. Great. Visser 3 had been promoted. Yeah, I said to the woman, but he was Visser 3 back in the old days, back when we were all friends, comrades in arms. No one told us you were visiting Earth, Visser, the woman babbled. She was clearly terrified. Obviously, Visser 3's reputation had not softened any over the years. Axe had regained his full Andalite form, and the various controllers on the street were staring in a mixture of fascination and fear. If I had known, the woman moaned, I would never. Axe waved his hand dismissively. Silence. You are right to remain vigilant. If you had not been vigilant, I would have destroyed you for being a careless fool. Now get out of here." "Yes, my visor, yes." The woman took off, fast, which left us standing around in the street. Which left us standing around in the street gaping at the Yerk pool with a lot of controllers gaping at us. "This isn't good," Marco said. "Word is going to travel very fast that Visor 3 is here, and someone is going to realize the truth." "So what now?" Jake wondered. How how long does the Elemist want to leave us here?" "Until we're convinced he's right," Tobias said. "There must be something more he wants us to see," Cassie said. I glanced at Cassie. She looked puzzled. I guess I expected her to look like, "See, I told you so. Here's the future." But she seemed troubled, like she couldn't make sense of something that was bothering her. "What?" I asked. She shrugged. "Just a feeling. There's something deeper going on here. Something we don't get." The Yerk pool was a busy little place. Controllers coming and going. The host bodies were shoved into cages and dragged back out when it was time. There was a steady procession along 6 different piers, draining out and taking in Yerks. Over it all loomed the EGS tower, topped off by the glass dome. "Why put a Yerk pool here?" I wondered aloud. There's all kinds of open areas. There's all kinds of open areas. Why go to the trouble of removing the buildings that were here? It's not like this is exactly a scenic location. "I wonder what year it is," Marco said. "Is this next year? 10 years from now? 20? I heard a low roar coming from the sky. A Yerk bug fighter swooped down low, took a turn around the EGS tower, and settled toward the near side of the Yerk pool. I don't know why, but I felt drawn to that bug fighter. Maybe it was some strange psychic urging. Maybe it was the Elemist, making me go closer to see what it was that he wanted to show me. Wherever the urge came from, I found myself walking toward the bug fighter. "Hey," Jake said, "what are you doing?" "You guys stay back," I said. "It's okay," Marco said, jerking his thumb at Axe. "We're with Visser 3 here. Excuse me, I mean Visser 1. And congrats on the big promotion, by the way." Axe stepped out quickly in front of me, swaggering and acting the role of the great and terrible Visser. As we drew closer to the pool, there was a crowd of controllers: humans, Hork-Bajir, Taxon, and a few odd species I had never seen. The crowd parted very quickly. No one wanted to accidentally annoy Visser 1 in any way. We swaggered up to the bug fighter like the bosses of the world. Then the door of the bug fighter opened. I stopped. Axe stopped as well. The others crowded behind us. My skin was tingling. My hair felt like it was standing on end. I knew something was about to happen, something awesome and terrible. And then they stepped from the bug fighter. A human and an Andalite. I knew the Andalite. We had met before. I could feel the dark dread that emanated from him. Visser 3. The real Visser 3. Seeing Axe along with Visser 3, the crowd of controllers immediately knew the difference. Visser 3 has an Andalite body, but there is no mistaking him for anything other than a creature of pure evil. "Well, well," Visser 3 said to the person with him. "Right on schedule. Just as you said it would be." I stared at the human. She was a pretty young woman, maybe 20 or 22 years old. She was a pretty young woman, maybe 20 or 22 years old. She had blonde hair, cut short. She wore no makeup. Her clothes were plain. I had stopped breathing. My heart had stopped beating. I tried to swallow, but I couldn't. "Hello, Rachel," the woman said to me. "Hello, Rachel," I replied. Chapter 21. It was me. Me, as I would be in the future. I knew you were coming, the future Rachel said. After all, I was you. Once I stood right where you stand now and looked just like you look now, and saw myself as I am today. She sounded perfectly calm, but her eyes flickered quickly to Axe, then back to me. Visser 3 shook his head in amusement. If only I had known from the start that you were humans. For so long I believed you were Andalites, until, at last, we caught you. I felt strangely calm. I mean, considering what was happening, I was face to face with Visser 3, who is now Visser 1. I was face to face with my own future. You're a controller, I said to the older me. Of course, she said. She smiled, a cruel smile, not at all like mine. We won. Of course, we won. You led us all on a nice chase, but in the end, we won. This planet is Yeerk territory. The human race has achieved its destiny as hosts for the Yeerk race. If you know so much about the future, how did we come to be here, in the future? Marco asked. An Elemist has brought you here, Visser 3 said. In your own time, you face a choice. In your own time, you face a choice. The Elemist has brought you 6 humans, you 5 humans and 1 Andalite, here to show you a future, to show you the future. Soon, he will return you to your own time. What choice did we make? I asked. The older Rachel returned her cruel smile. The right one, obviously. Everything has worked out perfectly. Yeah, Jake said defiantly. Maybe not. The Elemist brought us here to help us make a choice. So what if we go back to our own time and decide to accept the Elemist's offer? Then Rachel won't be around to be turned into a controller. She'll be with the rest of us on whatever planet the Elemist takes us to. I watched closely for any reaction by my older self. Nothing. Not a flicker. And yet, there was something. She was trying to hide something. You know what we decided. But still, here you are, I said. So, either you're here to change what I decided, except, no. Then it might change all of this. Or else you're here because your being here is what caused me to decide whatever I decided. Confusing, isn't it? Visser 3 sneered. I don't know how the Elamists keep it all straight. Let's leave, Cassie said suddenly. I don't like this place, and I don't like these 2 creatures. But Cassie, I'm your best friend, my older self said, mockingly. No, you're not. Maybe Rachel is still alive in there somewhere, but what you are is a Yeerk. Cassie started to turn away. As she did, she tripped. She fell against me. Suddenly, the older Rachel was there. She grabbed me and held my arm steady so I didn't fall. But to Axe, it must have looked like she was lunging at me. His tail whipped forward in the blink of an eye. Axe's quivering blade was pressed against the older Rachel's throat. Her eyes went wide with fear. She shot a glance at Visser 3, and, to my amazement, Visser 3 seemed frozen. He was confused. His main eyes narrowed. He looked from Axe to the older Rachel to me. Suddenly, I knew. This wasn't in the script, was it? I asked him. This wasn't supposed to happen. Something has changed. It's Axe, isn't it? You said 6 humans before. That's what you expected to find. That's what Rachel told you would happen. But the future has changed, hasn't it? Something is different. Visser 3 glared at me, and now he dropped the pretense of politeness. Do you know what I did when I finally caught you and your little band of Animorphs? Do you know what I did? I gave each of you to a trusted lieutenant. And once you belonged to us, once you were mine, I killed your bird friend here and we roasted his body. Visser 3 leaned close to me. He was tough and stringy, but we added a sauce you humans have. Barbecue, I believe it's called. And then your friend Tobias was delicious. You had a leg, as I recall. You ate it and you laughed. I really wanted to morph right then. I really wanted to become the grizzly and tear Visser 3 a few new holes, but there were hundreds of controllers around, and while I was morphing, I would be vulnerable. Axe still had his tail blade pressed against the older Rachel's throat. He can't hurt us, Axe said. He can't do a thing to us. If he does, he would change history. He doesn't know how that would work out. Good point, Axe, Jake said. He met my gaze. He had a dangerous, angry look in his eyes. He can't hurt us, but the reverse? Well, excellent point, I agreed. I focused my mind on the grizzly bear. So, Visser 3, you killed my friend Tobias and roasted him over a fire? I was beginning to change. So was Jake. I have 100 Hork-Bajir I can call, Visser 3 said. So call them, Marco said. So call them. Maybe one of them will get careless with the Dracon beam and kill one of us. How do you suppose that will change the past? Hard to tell, isn't it? Claws had sprouted from my fingers. Coarse brown fur was covering my body. I could feel the surge of power as I became more bear than human. Visser, the older Rachel said tersely, what do we do? We, Visser 3 said, we do nothing. I retreat. Visser 3 began backing away, but I wasn't about to let him go. I had him. After all the pain he had caused, I had him. After all the damage he had done, he was powerless. I did not wait until the last of my human features had submerged. I was bear enough. I charged. Bears are very large and look sort of clumsy, but they can be very fast. Now, you filth, let's see who eats who. I barreled toward him. He turned to run, but he had turned too late. I hit him. 800 pounds of fast-moving bear hit Visser 3 in the flank and brought him down hard. I drew back one huge claw and swung with all my might. My hand slapped the trunk of a tree. My human hand. Ow! I was human again. I was in the woods behind Cassie's farm. The others were all there as well. Tobias, once again a hawk, perched in a branch overhead. No! I'm sick of this! I yelled. I slammed the tree again in sheer frustration. I'm sick of this! I had him! Cassie came over and put her arm around my shoulders. It doesn't matter. That's a Visser 3 who doesn't exist yet. I'm sick of this, I said again, a little more softly. What's the point? What's the point in anything? We know the future now. We know what happens if we decide to stay and fight. I felt lost. The last ounce of energy just seeped away from me. It was too much, too many things to deal with. And what was the point? What did it even matter what I did? I flopped down into the grass and pine needle. Pardon me. I flopped down onto the grass and pine needle covered ground and rested my head in my hands. I was done. Done trying to make sense of a world where I could be jerked back and forth like a puppet. The 6 of us just lay there on the floor of pine needles for a while, staring, thinking, letting it all sink in. It was over. The war was done, and we had lost. It could all still be an Ellimist trick, Axe said, half-heartedly. No, I said flatly. You know it's not a trick, Ax. At least not the way at least not the way you mean. If the Elemist wanted to force us to do something, he has more than enough power. We need to think this through, Jake said, warily. I shrugged. You think it through. I'm tired of thinking. I was just about to vote when the Elemist dragged us off for his little show and tell. I was about to be good old Rachel and vote no. I was going to be tough one more time, but I'm changing my vote. I'm not going to end up as a controller. That's not going to happen. Not to me. If that means I'm running away, too bad. I changed my vote. You know what? At that moment of surrender, I felt good. I wish I could say I didn't, but I felt a wave of relief wash over me. No more hard decisions. No more danger. No more having to be brave. That makes it Cassie, Rachel, and me in favor, Marco said. 3-2, unless Axe is voting. I follow Prince Jake, Axe said. Maybe, Tobias began. Maybe if some of the human race survives on some other planet, maybe it will be like when they brought wolves back to live in the national forest. I mean, maybe someday we can return and take back Earth. Are you changing your vote, Tobias? Jake asked him. Jake, you know I would never run from a fight. We all just sat there, staring at nothing. We were going to do it. We were going to abandon the fight. We all knew it. Jake hung his head. Elemist, he said softly to the air. We have decided. The answer is yes. The Elemist had said we would be transported immediately once we decided. I expected my next breath to be drawn on some distant planet. But nothing happened. Nothing at all. Chapter 22. I can't tell you how weird it was going to school the next day. Sitting in class, trying to pay attention while my teacher, Ms. Paloma, talked about what led up to the Second World War. Maybe if the United States had been ready to fight earlier, she said, the war would have ended earlier and fewer people would have been killed. But our country wanted peace. I just kept looking at her and wondering, was that your skeleton draped across the desk? What was the point of going to school? What was the point in anything? I had seen the future. I knew how it all turned out. The human race was done for. Finished. That was where all our long history led, to a yerk pool. Because we were so devoted to peace, we may have actually made the war worse, Miss Paloma droned on. We'll never know for sure, of course. You can't really second-guess history. You can if you're an Elemist, I thought. If you're an Elemist, you can look ahead and see it all. Why not? It was Cassie's voice. I glanced across the room at her. She had that same look of confusion I'd seen the day before, the frustrated look, like she sensed something she couldn't quite grasp yet. Well, why can't you second-guess history, I mean? If you could go back and change things so that the U.S. was ready to fight earlier. Miss Paloma sat on the edge of the desk. Because events are intertwined in ways we cannot always see, Cassie. Sometimes small things can make huge differences. You know, they say that a single butterfly beating its wings in China may affect the way the wind blows here in our country. A single butterfly beating its wings may make a tiny change that becomes a bigger change, that becomes a tornado. The world isn't like math. It isn't just 1 + 1 = 2. It's more complicated than that. And then the oddest thing happened. Miss Paloma looked right at me, right in my eyes. Much more complicated than that, she said. A single butterfly, a single butterfly, a single butterfly. The hair on the back of my neck was tingling. Everyone was looking at her like she was crazy. Suddenly, Miss Paloma shook her head like she was popping out of a trance. She smiled a confused smile. Okay, well, anyway, you all have the reading assignments. The bell rang and I practically jerked up out of my seat. Cassie threaded her way through the kids who were rushing out of the room. Okay, tell me that wasn't weird, Cassie whispered. I thought maybe I was imagining it, I said. Besides, who knows what's weird anymore? I'm sitting there waiting for the you-know-who to suddenly zap us out of here. Cassie nodded. So why hasn't he? Out in the fast-moving crush of bodies in the hall, we made our way to our lockers. I don't know, I said as I spun my combination lock. We decided to say yes. We're giving him what he wants. I popped my locker door open. Unless, Cassie said. Unless maybe that wasn't the answer he wanted. I finished her thought. But it's nuts, Cassie said, frowning. Everything he did made it look like he wanted us to say yes. He appears the first time right as we're about to be swallowed by a... She looked around to make sure no one could overhear. Just as we were about to be swallowed. I mean, come on. Obviously, he must have figured we'd want to bail. We might have, I said. Sorry, we might have. Except we saw that drop shaft, so we thought we could escape. Otherwise, I stopped talking. I stared at Cassie. She stared back. He showed us that drop shaft, Cassie said. Why? I wondered aloud. Why? What is he doing with us? He appears when we're desperate. He appears when we're desperate. He says he doesn't interfere and gives us a choice. Then he lets us see a way out. What's that all about? Then he gives us another chance. Then he gives us another chance. He shows us the future. He shows us you, basically, you in the future. So we know for sure that we must have decided to stay and fight, and we know we lost. And all of that means we have to say yes and let him take us away. So why have I been feeling like I was missing something? The warning bell for next period rang. This is insane, as Marco would say. Cassie laughed. Yeah, I have gym next period. At any moment, I might suddenly be swooped away to another planet, but in the meantime, I have to go play volleyball? I watched her walk away. Then I hurried to my next class. A single butterfly, I thought. But how is the butterfly supposed to know when to beat her wings? Chapter 23. I was back in the underground yerk pool, trapped, stuck to the taxon tongue. But not a cockroach. I was myself, in my human body, only tiny, stuck, about to die. Axe was talking. Yerk pool, it is the center of their lives, almost a religion. I squirmed and tried to get away. I tried to change into something else. The bear. I wanted to become the bear. But I was stuck. All I could do was beat my helpless butterfly wings. He showed us the drop shaft. Cassie's voice murmured in the back of my head. I swirled down dark corridors. I flew wildly on... Pardon me. Take a break there for a second. I swirled down dark corridors. I flew wildly on butterfly wings, always chasing a light that never grew closer and yet never disappeared. The Kendrona, I thought in my dream. The light is the Kendrona, the center of their lives, almost a religion. The center of their lives, almost a religion. No, not the yerk pool, really. The Kendrona, that is the center for them. That is their light. He showed us the drop shaft, Cassie said again. Only now she was Miss Paloma. He showed us the drop shaft. And may I interject? Lisa needs braces. Dental plan. My eyes snapped open. I sat up in my bed. I was as awake as I'd ever been. I was electric. Ha ha! I yelled in the darkness of my room. Yes! Then I hesitated. Was I nuts? Was I just desperate? I ran through it all again. Got him, I whispered. Oh man, we got him. Caught the disgusting worms. I shucked off the t-shirt that I wear to bed and quickly slipped into my morphine outfit. I threw open the window. Then I paused. It would be Saturday morning in a few hours. No school. But if my mom found me gone, she might worry. I quickly scribbled a note saying I had gone for an early morning run. That I might go over to Cassie's afterward. And then I glanced at the picture on my desk, the one of 3-year-old me on the balance beam, being held up by my proud father. I could not tell the others. We had already decided. We were going to say yes to the Elemist. We would let him take us to a place where there would be no battles and no need to decide. If I told my friends what I suspected, I felt the weight come down on me again, the weight of uncertainty and guilt and fear. I looked at the picture of my dad and smiled. What would you think of me, Dad, if I walked away when I still had a chance to win? And then I morphed. My arm shrank. My arm shrank. My skin began to flow into patterns of soft feathers that could ride silently on the night breeze. In a few more minutes, I was ready. The moon was bright in the sky. Dawn was still hours away. A perfect night for an owl. But I paid no attention to the juicy prey below me as I flew at top speed toward the woods. Tobias, it's me. Don't panic, but wake up. What the? Didn't I tell you about zooming up? Come on, I yelled. Come on, where? Don't argue, just come on. Don't argue, just come on. I know you don't like to fly at night, but just come on anyway. Rachel, have you lost your mind? Where are we going? We're going to be butterflies, Tobias. We're going to Cassie's barn, and then we're going to change history. He opened his wings and flew alongside me, just a few feet away. Whatever you say, Rachel, Tobias said grumpily, but what makes you think... I know where it is, Tobias, I interrupted him. Or what is... Tobias? I know the location of the Kandrona. Chapter 24. Okay, it's 3:47 in the morning, Marco said, and I'm here thanks to the fact that my dad is a sound sleeper who doesn't notice when I wake up screaming because an owl and a hawk have just flown through my window. So now maybe you can tell us all why we're here? Everyone was there in Cassie's barn. Jake looked sleepy but interested. Cassie was using the time to check on some of the sick animals. Axe just stood to one side, waiting to see what Jake told him to do. Tobias perched on an overhead beam, tired from having flown too much. We were lit by a single small light bulb that never even touched the shadows in the corner of the barn. We didn't want to take the chance that Cassie's parents might notice a light on and come to investigate. Yes, I answered Marco. I'll tell you why you're here. I know where the Kandrona is. I know where it is. That got his attention, but he was still skeptical. What makes you think you know where the Kandrona is? The Elemist. He showed us. The Elemist. He showed us. We all thought it was unfair when he appeared in the Yerk pool and asked us to decide when we were about to be eaten, right? I told you, Elemists care nothing about fairness, Axe said. No, you're wrong, Axe. At least this time. The Elemist appeared when we were about to be swallowed by the taxon, but then he showed us the drop shaft. We saw the drop shaft because it was there, Jake argued. It wasn't about him showing it to us. Are you sure? I asked. Are you sure? He waited until we had walked out of... Are you sure? He waited until we had walked out of the Yerk lunchroom to appear. He waited until we were standing where we were sure to notice the drop shaft. I saw Jake raise an eyebrow thoughtfully. He and Marco exchanged a look. What if we're wrong about the Ellimist being unfair? What if Cassie's instinct is right? That he is telling the truth? That he's trying to do what's right? Sorry. That he's trying to do what's right. He tells us so that in the future we lose the fight. That the human race is enslaved. That he has a way to save a small number of us by taking us to a safe place. And it's all true. If he's telling us the truth, that we lose in the future, what's this all about? Marco asked. We've seen that future. Nothing we do will matter. I shook my head. No, it will matter. If it didn't matter how we decided, why even bother to ask us what we wanted to do? See? It does matter what we do. Yes, Marco said. But the answer is obvious. We can only change the future by agreeing to the Ellimist plan to take us to a safe planet. Yes, that's one way. He offered us that. But when we finally accepted, he didn't act. He didn't take us instantly away. Why? Why, after we agreed, did he leave us here? Because he wanted a different answer, Cassie said, nodding at me and giving me a wink. That's what had been eating at me. What different answer? Marco asked. He's in a trap, Cassie said. The Ellimist is trapped. He wants to save Earth, but he can't interfere directly. Supposedly, all he's allowed to do is offer to save a small number of us, but he knows that won't save planet Earth. It will save a few humans, yes, but when he showed us visions of Earth, he wasn't talking just about humans. He said Earth was a work of art. He wants to find a way to save it. Without interfering directly, I agreed. But what if we just happen to see another way? What if we just happen to see another way? What if the Ellimist showed us the future, trying to convince us to let him take us away, and we just happen to see a way out? What way out? Jake demanded. The Kendrona. He let us see where the Kendrona is, I said. That yurk pool, downtown, that's the key. Why build a yurk pool downtown? Why level so many buildings to make room for it? Why leave the EGS tower still standing? And why is there a glass dome on the top floors of the EGS? Axe is the one who said it. The yurk pool is the center of their lives. That yurk pool? I think it's a shrine. Almost a holy place to them. It's where they located the first Kendrona. It's where they located the first Kendrona to be placed on planet Earth. Jake snapped his fingers. The EGS tower. That's what's under that dome on the top floors. The Kendrona. That's what the Ellimist wanted us to see. Just the way he let us see the drop shaft we used to escape. He wasn't interfering, technically. The choice is still ours. Marco laughed out loud. You mean maybe the Ellimist is bending his own rules? So he can say, hey, I didn't interfere, but at the same time, he's putting us where we can figure it out? I can't believe it. The Ellimist is a weasel. He found a loophole. Think I kind of like that guy. But even if you're right about the Kendrona, Rachel, Jake argued, what does it prove? If we destroy it, are we sure it will change the future? Cassie looked at me and smiled. Maybe yes, maybe no, she said. But things are connected in millions of ways. They say a single butterfly beating its wings in China can start a tornado in America. Yes, Tobias said. But how does the butterfly know when to beat its wings? It doesn't, I said. I guess it beats its wings the best it can and hopes it will all work out. It's a butterfly. It just does what butterflies do. And what do we do, Xena, warrior princess? Marco asked, mocking, knowing the answer I would give. We kick your butt, I said with a grin. Chapter 25. At 5:10 in the morning, the EGS tower's windows were almost all dark. From the deeply shadowed plaza in front of the building, we could see a sleepy, uniformed guard inside the lobby. There are dozens of businesses and law firms and stuff in this building, Jake warned. Most of them are probably just normal people. Fortunately, at this time of day, almost no one will be here, but the guard is probably just a normal guy. How do we deal with him without hurting him? Cassie asked. Suddenly, Tobias swooped down out of a dark sky. I can't see anything useful through the windows up there, he said. Too bad that glass dome is still in the future. But I can tell you one thing. Something up there is giving off some heat. I'm getting a beautiful updraft from the building itself. Let's do this already, I grumbled. I started morphing into the bear. Okay, but take it easy on innocent bystanders, Jake said. Tobias, I know you're wearing out, but stay up and keep an eye out while we morph. No prob, Jake. He flapped his wings and slowly gained altitude. These doors will be locked, Cassie pointed out. Not for long, I said. Axe was already demorphing, coming out of his human body and resuming his Andalite shape. Jake's eyes were glittering, his body was lengthening, and striped orange and black fur was spreading like a wave over his skin. Cassie was already on all fours. Rough gray fur grew thickly around her shoulders. Her mouth bulged out further and further to form a wolf's muzzle. Hey, a guy's coming up behind you, Tobias called down. I think he's drunk. He's carrying a bottle. If it were daytime, I could read the label. He's definitely staggering. Keep morphing, Jake said quickly. Cassie, see if you can get rid of him. Cassie trotted off, already fully morphed, and a few seconds later we heard followed by whoa, no way, and the sound of a crashing bottle and running feet. Cassie returned just as the rest of us were finishing our morphs. He decided to go in a different direction, Cassie reported. Okay, so let's go in, I said. I was fully the grizzly now and feeling invulnerable. Actually, how about if Marco tries it first? Jake suggested. Sorry. While the rest of us lurked in the shadows, Marco, now an extremely large, powerful gorilla, knuckle walked to the glass door. He stood up on his hind legs and tapped with one massive finger on the glass. The guard jerked in his seat. He stood up and moved cautiously closer. Then he drew his gun. Hey, get out of here, the guard said. Hi, Marco said in thought speak. I just came from a masquerade party and I was looking for Visser 3. The guard's eyes went wide. Andalite, he hissed. Oh, so you are a controller. Good, that makes it so much simpler. With that, Marco punched straight through the thick glass of the door. Crash! Pardon me, my voice is wearing out a little bit. His gorilla fist connected squarely with the guard's chin. The guard crumpled, still holding his gun. Move, 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 Jake yelled. I barreled into the rest of the glass door. I was careful, but not too careful. I wasn't very worried about being hurt. Shattered glass flew everywhere. Cassie, Axe, and Jake leapt over the glass shards. Jake raced for the elevator. There may be an alarm. We have to move fast, Jake said. We'll never fit in one elevator, Marco said. Head for the freight elevator. That'll hold us, Jake said. Go to the top floor. Cassie and Axe kept an eye on all activity on the ground floor while they waited for the elevator to come. Ugh, sorry. Cassie and Axe kept an eye on all activity on the ground floor while they waited for the elevator to come back down. Jake, Marco, and I had the most firepower, so we went in first. We squeezed our combined bulk into the one freight elevator car. Not an easy thing to do, but we managed it. Which brings us back around to this. We made it. Can you press the button? I sure can't, Jake said. He held up one of his huge paws to show me. It wasn't easy. Bear paws aren't exactly subtle tools, but after carefully lining up my first claw, I hit the top button. Why would you not get the gorilla to hit the button? The doors closed and we rose swiftly upward. There was a safety inspection certificate mounted on one wall. I leaned very close to make out the letters and read it out loud. Says here the maximum load is 20 people. How many bears, tigers, and gorillas? The ride seemed to be taking forever. I watched the counter tick off the floors. 21, 22, 23. So, seen any good movies lately? Jake asked. I want to go see that new one with Keanu Reeves, I said. He's supposed to be cute, right? Oh, sorry, I missed that. I think that would be Marco saying, he's supposed to be cute, right? Duh, I said. I wonder if he'd ever want to go out with a girl like me. You know, lots of guys wouldn't want to date a grizzly bear. Suddenly, I realized there was music playing in the elevator. The usual stupid elevator music. Get ready, Jake said. Been ready. Top floor, ladies' shoes, children's apparel, everyone out, Marco announced in his best elevator operator's voice. The elevator stopped, the door opened. The elevator stopped, the door opened just as 3 humans and 2 Hork-Bajir were racing toward the elevator. Roar! Jake roared in a voice that could crack concrete. Roar! I echoed in my own muddier bear voice. I charged like an enraged bull. I went straight for the nearest Hork-Bajir. That meant running through the closest human. I felt a slight thump as his body was knocked aside. I slammed into the Hork-Bajir. The force of my charge just picked him up and carried him along until I hammered him into the far wall. It didn't kill him, but he wasn't going anywhere. Jake took down the other Hork-Bajir with a lightning swipe of his claws. The remaining humans bolted. I'm cut, Jake said. Is it bad? It isn't good, Jake said, but I'll be okay for a while. Just then, the elevator door opened, and Axe and Cassie piled out. About time, I said. We've taken care of the welcoming committee. Sorry, Axe pushed the button for the wrong floor, Cassie said. She glanced at the 2 Hork-Bajir. You know they have to have more than those 2 up here guarding the Kendrona. And Jake, you're bleeding, Cassie cried. I'm fine. I'm fine. The human controllers ran down that hallway, Jake said. Let's go. We haven't won this battle yet. I took off at a loping run. The others were right behind me. My claws gouged the carpeted floor with every step. I couldn't see well, but I could smell the adrenaline of the frightened human controllers, and I knew where they had gone. I could smell them, I could sense them. They had challenged me, and I was going to show them who was boss. Watch out, Rachel, Cassie called. There's a door straight ahead of you. No, there's no door, I said, and plowed all my 800 pounds into a steel door that popped open like the lid of a jack-in-the-box. Inside, 8 Hork-Bajir warriors stood ready. 8 walking razor blades. 8 of them, 5 of us. No way we could win. A sensible person would have seen the odds and run away. But I charged straight at them. Later, everyone thought I was being brave. But you know what the truth was? The truth was, with my weak, bare eyesight, all I could see was a blur. I had thought they were humans. I wasn't brave. I was just blind. Chapter 26. Rachel! Cassie yelled a warning. Too late to retreat, Jake said. Go! I figured out the 8 blurry figures were Hork-Bajir when I was about 3 feet away from slamming into the first one. By then, it was too late to stop. Kill the governor and the lights, a Hork-Bajir cried in the weird mix of languages they use. Kill Frakan and the light, kill all. Suddenly, I realized I was cut. A searing pain radiated from my shoulder. I swung my paw and hit the Hork-Bajir in the head. He fell, but as he fell, he slashed with his huge tyrannosaur feet and ripped a second cut in me. Arrgh! From that point on, it was a nightmare of terrible images that seemed to float in and out of my hazy vision. I saw Cassie with her bone-breaking jaws sunk into the throat of a Hork-Bajir. I saw Axe, his tail like a deadly bullwhip, lashing, cutting, lashing again, until one of the Hork-Bajir stood screaming, holding his own severed arm. I saw Jake and a Hork-Bajir locked in a deadly embrace as they rolled and slashed at each other with superhuman speed. I saw Marco fighting on with one arm as he held his own sliced stomach together with the other hand, and everywhere, snarling, growling, raging, roaring noise. Look out, Rachel, behind you! Die, Garfarash, die! Roar. Help, he's on me! Ah! I couldn't tell who was winning. I couldn't tell who was hurt. It all became one long cry, one long scream of rage. Hork-Bajir and Animorph, alien and animal. We were flesh and blood creatures, thrown into a meat grinder. 13 deadly animals locked in a combat to the death. I felt the bear weakening as he was cut again and again by Hork-Bajir blades. I was losing blood. The human part of me knew that. I could feel my strength ebbing. I charged again and hit a Hork-Bajir in the stomach. I carried him along with my momentum as he slashed wildly at me. Crash! I hit something. Glass. It had shattered. A window. I had shoved the Hork-Bajir through the window. Ah! I heard the Hork-Bajir's cry, dying away as it fell. A sudden flash of movement as something came zooming through the shattered window. Zir! Tobias screamed as he spread his talons forward and struck the closest Hork-Bajir, raking his eyes. The battle had turned. The Hork-Bajir had had enough. Maybe it was hearing one of their fellows fall 60 stories, or maybe it was Tobias's arrival, strengthening our side, but whatever it was, the remaining Hork-Bajir ran. 3 of them ran. The rest would not be running anywhere. Sorry. Marco grabbed the crumpled door and slammed it back into place. Then, with what must have been the last of his strength, he shoved a desk in place to block the door. I'm hurt bad, Marco said. I gotta morph out, man. Do it, Jake said. Everyone, demorph. I'm okay, I said weakly. Rachel, Tobias said. Your left arm. I stared blankly at my left paw. It wasn't there. It was a stump. Demorphing, I said. I focused on my human body, my weak but healthy human body. Morphing is done from DNA, fortunately. DNA is not affected by injuries, so injuries do not follow you from one morph to another. Exhaustion does. As my human body emerged from the vast bulk of the grizzly, I felt so weary I was afraid I might faint. Through human eyes, I saw a scene of carnage. The Hork-Bajir lay sprawled around the room. Most seemed to be breathing. None were conscious. All were bleeding from claw and teeth wounds. Unfortunately for the Hork-Bajir, they could not simply morph out of their injured bodies. Everyone okay? Jake asked, sounding as weary as I felt. Yeah, but that was way too close, Cassie said. We were in a large office. I could see that now with my human eyes. Desks lay splintered. The carpet was ripped into ribbons. The walls were gouged. Floor to ceiling, windows formed one of the walls. They were shattered. I remembered the Hork-Bajir falling and shuddered. There was a door in one wall. Through there? Marco suggested. Let's try it, I said. I staggered toward the door. It was not locked. A bare room, tile floor, white painted walls. The wall of windows. The wall of windows was blocked by heavy curtains. The room was empty but for a large, massively built platform in the very center. It was a steel pedestal, maybe 3 feet high, 8 feet long. And atop that pedestal was a machine the size of a small car. It was shaped like a cylinder. Tapered to dull points on both ends. It gleamed brightly, like new chrome, as if it had just been polished, and it made a slight, low humming noise. As I approached, I felt my hair stand on end from the static electricity. It was warm in the room, very warm. It smelled like lightning. The Kendrona, Axe said. The Kendrona, I echoed. For a full minute, we all just stood there, gaping at it. Rachel, Jake said at last. Rachel, Jake said at last. We need you to morph again. Can you do it? I nodded slowly. Elephant? Elephant. I don't know how else we're going to do it. We don't have any tools or anything. I morphed the elephant. Tobias flew outside to make sure there were no pedestrians below on the dark sidewalk. It took every last ounce of power that elephant had, but the Kendrona did move. It did, slowly, in jerks and starts, slide across the floor. And when at last I shoved it through the windows, it did fall 60 stories to smash into the concrete below. Chapter 27. We did it, I whispered as I returned to my normal body. We destroyed the Kendrona. We have to get out of here, Jake said. The Yerks will know. They'll be all over this place. So what does this mean? Marco asked. We did it, but what does it mean? Have we changed the future? Everything changes the future. I groaned. Somehow I knew we'd hear from that guy again. A replacement Kendrona will be here in 3 of your weeks. It was already on its way. Are you telling us that this was all a waste? Marco demanded. Axe said, No, Marco, it was not a waste. No, Marco, it was not a waste. 3 weeks with only the Kendrona aboard the mothership? In 3 weeks' time, they will suffer greatly. They will fall behind in their schedule. Many Yerks will perish. 3 weeks is not a waste. Don't you mean 3 of our weeks, Axe? Marco teased. Is it enough? Jake demanded loudly. Is it enough? Have we changed the future? There was no answer, just silence. I don't think he knows, I said. He showed us a possible future, but you know what? I don't believe the Elemist really knows the future any more than we do. What makes you so sure? I laughed. I laughed. Because wherever it is that Elemis exists, and whatever he's up to, and whatever game he's playing, and no matter how mighty he has butterflies too. Then an amazing thing. Laughter that welled up from inside us and echoed through us and made us all smile as if we were fresh and full of energy. As I said, you are a primitive race, and yet you are capable of learning. I smiled. Come on, guys. Do you have the energy for one more morph? I feel like flying. At first, we saw no evidence that the Yeerks were suffering. I don't know how they did it, but the Yeerks managed to maintain. It wasn't until later that we learned we had done them terrible damage. But that is another story. 2 days later, I took the bus over to my dad's apartment. He was packing up his suitcase to leave. "Hi, Rachel," he said when he opened his door. "I wasn't sure you were coming over." I shrugged. "You're too disorganized to be able to pack all by yourself." He smiled a sad smile. "Thanks. Yeah, no big thing." "I would have come and picked you up," he said. "Sweetheart," my dad said, you know you can always change your mind. You can always come live with me." "I know, Dad." He smiled sadly. "You know I'll miss seeing you as much, even though I'll be here every chance I get." "I know that too, Dad," I said. I gave him a little kiss on his cheek. He patted my hair, and I cried. I closed up his suitcase and zipped it. "You going to be okay without me here to take care of you?" he asked. "I can take care of myself," I said, wiping away the tears. We took the elevator down to a taxi that was waiting. "Come with me to the airport. I'll send you home in the cab." I shook my head. "No, I have stuff to do." He smiled. "I understand. You probably have something very important to do with your friends." It was a joke. "Absolutely," I said. "We have to save the world." My dad laughed. "If anyone can do it, honey, it would be you." Then the taxi drove off. I looked up in the sky. A lone hawk circled high overhead. "You coming, Rachel?" Tobias called down to me in thought speak. I nodded my head so that he could see. Yes, I was coming. The end. We all survived the 7th book except for a bunch of Hork-Bajir, I expect. The next book is the first Megamorphs book. I will be going away for work over the next few weeks, so I may be broadcasting live from a comfort inn in the evenings, and I may have to adjust the exact timing of the schedule, but I mean, I probably will just be at a comfort inn on weekday evenings, so probably no reason why I can't continue doing this on a weekly basis. It just may have to be a little bit earlier or something. So I will keep you posted. And thank you for joining me tonight. Good night.